back to another episode of the podcast and our monthly Q&A episode. We do these at the end of each month. We have you guys all throughout the month putting questions into Spotify onto all of our long form episodes. And we say, just give us questions that you want to hear in these monthly Q&A episodes. And they're just always so fun. It's so fun hearing what you guys want us to cover. And this is also a good way for us to kind of like test out concepts for different types of episodes and seeing what you guys like to hear. So we definitely encourage you, anytime you're listening to the podcast on one of our episodes, please leave questions in Spotify, anything you want to hear us cover. And again, these come out on the last Friday of every month. So we do these monthly. This is our February Q&A. So yeah, let's get into it. This first question, I feel like this is like 3 questions in one. So I'm just going to read it and we're going to talk about it. Someone left this in Spotify. They said, I have felt so unmotivated for school. And I think part of that is not knowing what comes after all of this effort. I would love to know your takes on uncertainty and how to navigate toward aligned goals easier. I think when you've worked really hard for something, it can be easy to lose your direction or discernment, especially when burnt out. Have you ever pivoted on something you worked hard for, and what was it like to make that decision?
With the last question of like, have you ever pivoted on something you worked hard for and what was it like to make that decision? It's called the sunken cost fallacy. And it's basically the idea that just because, or we as humans, we feel the need to continue forward with something when we've invested time, money, and effort into it, even if we know that continuing forward on it is not going to yield us a result that we actually want, or it isn't going to get us to where we want to be. And I think about that a lot when I'm like, okay, am I doing this? Like, am I going forward with something because I already invested time and money into this? And so I feel obligated to, or, is this actually what I want? And I think the classic example for me of when I pivoted on something was I went to college for 4 years and I got a degree and I wanted to be a human rights lawyer, and I took the LSAT. I studied for it for months and I was getting ready to apply to law school. And then I realized that was not what I wanted to do. And I pivoted entirely and I didn't apply for a single full-time job when I graduated college, mind you, with $70,000 of student loan debt. And I decided to not do anything related to my degree. And I have not used my degree at all. Of course, I've used the soft skills I gained from my degree, but my degree was in human rights, urban studies, and social justice organizing. And now I am a content creator and do freelance marketing. Like, it's like they are very, very different. And I think, honestly, when I think about, like, when you ask the question of what was it like to make that decision and what helped me in making that decision, was I had to come back to just the question of what kind of life do I want to live? And the reality is, and what I thought about was that I get one life. Everyone's days are numbered. We don't necessarily know the number of days we have. And I just knew, like, would I rather go after what I want and live the life that I want and pivot and maybe scrap my initial plan, but live a life that I enjoy, or continue forward with what I'm doing because I feel obligated to? And that was a big, big, just like shift for me. I was like, you know what? The only reason I'd be continuing forward with my degree and my initial plan is because I invested time and money and effort into it. It's not what I actually want. And yeah, now here I am.
My response to this question, and again, I do think there's like 3 questions lumped into this. There's a lot that we can talk about here. I'm going to give you some tough love, okay? Especially because I know that this person is still in school. So I'm kind of thinking back to when I was still in school. For most of us, I know this is my situation, we don't have the luxury of just like quitting what we're doing to go pursue something else, especially when you're in a situation where you might not even necessarily know what that something else is. You do need to go after what you want, or at least what you think you might want, while you're still doing what you need, in this case, school. But if you're also listening to this when you're not in school, this could be maybe like a corporate job that you have, but you're not super passionate about. You are probably going to need to still continue doing your corporate job or remain in school while also going after you want in your free time. And I know that can sound like, oh, well, how am I going to find the time to do something else while I'm already a full-time student, or while I'm already a corporate employee? You got to find the time. And I do think that, again, this is some tough love. you're never going to have more energy than you do right now. You're young, you're in your 20s, and you have no dependents, probably. But like for most of us, you are young in your 20s and you don't have dependents. You're never going to have more energy than you do right now. So now is the perfect time to, yeah, go to class in the morning and then spend some time researching side hustles or a business that you might want to get into or whatever you're passionate about. Just go after that in your free time because you're never going to have more time than you do right now. I know for me, I was a finance and an economics major. And then I got my MBA as well. And I was never really super excited about getting a job in my field. Like corporate finance it never really spoke to me. But when I was in college, I spent basically all of my free time learning about personal finance and investing because it was just something that I was curious about on my own. And I had really no idea what I was going to do with it, but like from a career perspective, but I just spent my time learning about it and being curious about it. And then when I got into my corporate job, I was working remote and I just felt like I had more free time on my hands outside of my corporate job. So I started posting TikToks and that ended up being my side hustle. And then that ended up being kind of my full time thing alongside of the podcast and all of that. But I say that because it's not this situation where you don't really love what you're doing, so you need to go quit school and try something else. You're probably going to get to something else and realize that that's maybe not also what you want to do. You kind of do have to allow things to overlap a little bit, even though it's going to seem like you're putting a lot on your plate.
I think too, to the question about, I would love to know your takes on uncertainty and how to navigate towards aligned goals easier. I think uncertainty is just part of life in general. It's very, very difficult to be certain about really anything and about what the next chapter of life is going to look like in any way. And I think we want to be able to understand like where we are and where we're going because it makes it easier for us to measure and easier for us to predict. I think our brains are safer when we do that. We know exactly where we're headed. It feels safer to us. It feels easier to us, and that's more comfortable. But when you really think about it, like, I don't know what the next year of my life is going to look like. I can't be certain about that. I can't be certain about what, my future relationship, my future marriage will be like. I can't be certain about what it's going to look like to have kids, to have more than one child, to retire. There are so many chapters of life beyond where I am now that I cannot be certain about. And I have to just like be okay with that uncertainty. And I know when I was in college, I was making a pretty hard pivot from my degree to something else. And the only thing I knew for certain was when I graduate, I will keep doing my side hustle of Instacart like it's a full-time job, full-time hours, so that I can be able to pay my bills and pay off my loans and do all these things on top of freelancing. That was the only piece of certainty I had. So I kind of clung to that, and I just had to be okay with uncertainty as a whole. But that uncertainty is going to come no matter what chapter of life you are in. And then on the how to navigate towards aligned goals easier, I talk about this often, I feel like, but the way that I figure out what kind of like, I don't know, if my goals are aligned, is working backwards and being like, what kind of life do I want to live? What could possibly get me there? And then picking one of those things and starting there. And I think sometimes, especially as it relates to career and school, we go in the opposite direction. We say like, what do I enjoy? Let me pick one of those things and then hopefully it gets me to where I want to be. And that's when our goals start to feel misaligned because we're like, wait, I'm working towards this thing, but then I'm realizing it's not even giving me what I want. So if you can kind of try to reverse engineer it and say, what do I actually want out of life? How do I want to feel? What do I want my schedule to look like? What do I want my day to day to look like? What does work-life balance look like to me? Or what does work and social life balance, or however you want to frame it, what does that look like to me? And how can I what are the decisions that might help me get there, and then making sure that your goals align with like that trajectory of the life that you want to live, I think is a good way to think about it. And it's how I think about it.
And I think a lot of times too, we focus so much on trying to understand what our like long-term vision is that we don't end up taking any steps at all because we're like, well, I don't know exactly what I want my whole career to look like. Nobody does. I don't know what I want my career to look like in 10 years. Don't get so caught up on, what's my long-term vision? What is my end goal? And just take steps to get you closer to the life that you think you want to live. With that, I think let's go on to the second question here. I really like this one because we talk a lot about these types of things on the podcast, but how do you romanticize your life without overspending? And I definitely think about this a lot. I think for me, romanticizing your life is actually so not about money, like at all. Like it has absolutely nothing to do with money. Yes, there can be some little costs here and there for the things that I'm going to talk about, but when you hear romanticizing your life, I think it's easy to immediately think about the big things, but it's actually all about the small things. Romanticizing your life for me is all about romanticizing those kind of small, mundane moments of your life, and that's really what matters when we talk about romanticizing. For example, this Saturday, I have no plans. I'm kind of just like planning on having a chill weekend. It is so different for me to wake up on a Saturday morning and have a clean apartment, come downstairs. I'm wearing a cute pair of pajamas. I'm going to make my coffee and then I'm going to journal and maybe sit on my patio. And then I go for a walk with my dog and I come home and I make a good meal. Maybe I go to the gym in a cute workout set. That to me is romanticizing my life. And that is also so different than the exact same Saturday where I come downstairs in like old baggy sweatpants and my or my house is a disaster and I just lay on the couch all morning and then maybe I go work out, but like I don't feel great. I feel kind of sluggish because I laid on the couch all morning. It's the exact same Saturday, but you're making these small little tweaks to both your environment and then also your routines that make you romanticize your life.
To me, romanticizing your life is really not even about things. I think that's like when I was reading this question, I was thinking about what does it even mean to me to romanticize my life? And to me, it's more about being present and slowing down. Because when I think about again, like the movies where it looks like people are just frolicking through life and living their best life, it's not that they are to me, I think about the moments where these people are skipping down the street or they're like making pancakes on the stove on a Saturday morning and they're playing music and dancing around the kitchen. Like those are the things that I think about when I think about romanticizing my life. And so to me, it has nothing to do with the things. When I try to romanticize my own life, I try to slow down, like literally slow down. When I'm making my breakfast, just being like in that moment again, putting a cute playlist on and just like dancing around while I'm making my pancakes, or just like sitting on my balcony to eat my pancakes in the morning, or reading a book on my balcony, or even just like getting like cozied up on my couch and reading a book, slowing down and really being in the moment. I think, yes, there are certain things that make my life feel more whimsical and fun, like just if I'm out and I'm grabbing coffee with my friend, like taking a cute picture of the two of us or whatever to, even if it's just like a silly photo or something that just makes that moment feel special or fun or whatever, of course. But that's also, again, largely a free thing, minus the cost of, getting coffee. But I think there are ways to, I don't know, just romanticize without even spending any money. I also think, too, one thing that adds some more fun to my life is just trying new things and making room in your budget for those things. Those things make me feel like I am romanticizing my life, whether that is, okay, I leave $10 in my budget every week to go to a new coffee shop every Sunday, or, I make sure I save a few class pass credits to be able to, you know, go to a different class, a new class this month, or I look for free activities to do in my city. Like those things are also a way to romanticize your life without even worrying about the things that you have or what you're spending on any of them. Because again, they're all free.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it has anything to do with money at all. I think a big one for me, and this does relate to slowing down and not rushing, it's taking the time to get ready. For example, if you are going to go run a couple of errands, it is such a different activity if you take 20 minutes to put on a cute outfit and put on a cute pair of sunglasses, and then you get in your car and you're listening to a good playlist. You feel so much different than if you just quickly run to the grocery store in an old pair of sweatpants. So I think that's a big one too. And we talk about the importance of getting ready from a confidence aspect a lot on the podcast, but I do think that it does a lot for romanticizing your life as well. Like, go sit at your vanity for 30 minutes and put on a YouTube vlog from a YouTuber that you really like and sit there and make your little vanity setup all cute so that you actually enjoy those 30 minutes. I really do think it's about the little things, which sometimes, like for example, if you are going to make your vanity setup cuter and you want to buy a couple of organizers, okay, sure, that costs a little bit of money. We are talking about a very small amount of money for all of these things. They're small tweaks that you can make to make your life a little bit more romanticized. But with that, let's go on to the third question. This one says, what money mistakes did you make in your 20s?
I don't know if I necessarily have, like, there's none that come to mind that really stand out. I Same thing with like the sunk cost fallacy, or the idea of just like water under the bridge. I feel like a lot of the decisions I've made with money that maybe I would have gone back and made a different decision, I don't look at them as a mistake that haunts me or that I feel any sort of guilt or shame towards. It's just, again, it's just water under the bridge. I'm like, it happened. I'm not going to dwell on it. I'm not going to cry over spilled milk. I think I didn't even consider it a mistake again, because I think I got a quality education, and the debt is all gone now. But I graduated college with $70,000 of student loan debt. And when I went to school, I went to the University of Connecticut and I was accepted into their business program. And that was what I wanted to do at the time. Was I wanted to do my undergrad in business management and then go and get a master's in nonprofit management. That was my initial plan. So when I looked at all the schools I had been accepted into and I compared, okay, the quality of the business program I was accepted into and the campus and whether I liked it or not, and their extracurriculars and the community that I felt on the campus, I just objectively, UConn had the best business program. So it made sense for me to go there. However, because I was out of state, it was more expensive. And I didn't know at the time that I was going to end up not using my degree or even changing my major. I didn't anticipate any of that. So of course, hindsight's 2020. Would I have paid $70,000 for the degree that I have that I no longer use? No. And that doesn't even include the money that I paid for my degree that wasn't on loans. Like, that was just the loans that I had. So I would not have done that. I could have gotten a very comparable degree that I could have thrown out the window from a UMass Amherst or something, which is a good school, but it's a state school because I'm from Massachusetts. So it would have been a fraction of the cost. But again, I made the decision that made sense in the moment. And I think that was all I could have done. I think the other quote unquote mistake or thing I just wish I did sooner, but it's funny because I didn't even start, in my eyes, when I started investing, that's the thing, is investing. If I had started investing much earlier, I obviously would have loved that, but I don't feel behind in investing at all. I don't feel like I can't like catch up or haven't caught up or anything like that. I feel confident in where I'm at there. But I think generally speaking, if I could go back and do one thing sooner, it would be investing. But I'm not really upset about it. I think with financial decisions, there comes a point where you just have to look at it and say, I'm not going to cry over spilled milk. I'm just going to go into solution mode, into problem solving mode, and say, okay, what decision did I make that I'm not really the most satisfied with? Or was there anything I wish I did sooner or whatever? And instead of having guilt or shame, using that as a data point to say, okay, well, this decision makes me feel this way. So that is going to motivate me to do something going forward. So I am going to invest more going forward. I am going to be careful about debt that I take on. I will educate my future children on taking on loads of school debt, whatever it may be. And I think that's really like all you can do at
I
a certain point.
agree. I don't really like thinking of any of my past decisions as mistakes either, because every decision I've made has led me here and I really like where here is. I think the one thing, looking back on all of the money that I've spent in my 20s, the one thing that I think is a quote unquote mistake, or I just spent more on than I probably should have, is moving too frequently in my 20s. I have moved like 6 times in the last 5 years, or whatever the numbers end up to be. I've moved so much. And I think this kind of goes hand in hand with moving in with a partner before you're ready. My college boyfriend and I moved in together right after college, like very preemptively, like should not have moved in together. I've also talked about on the podcast before the whole thing that happened with Bella, because I got Bella with him, and that was a whole big thing that I won't even get into. But obviously can't consider that a mistake because now I have Bella. But with that, I moved from one apartment to moving in with him to two other Pittsburgh apartments after living with him to moving to Nashville to now moving into my house. That was kind of my route after college. And every time you move, it is so expensive. Like you end up spending so much money between security deposits and buying new furniture, and if you have overlap between your leases or anything. So I think that's the one thing that I wish I would have just stayed put a little bit longer in places, especially when I moved out of my ex's house. And luckily, I wasn't in a lease there because his parents actually owned the place and we were like paying rent to his parents kind of. I wasn't in a lease, so I didn't have to like pay out my lease because my ex and I split or anything. So that was good. But I very quickly, like literally 9 days later, moved into my first apartment in Pittsburgh. And the only unit that they had available at the time was like the smallest one bedroom that they had, which I worked from home. So there really wasn't a space for a desk there. And because of that, I think like 6 or 7 months later, I upgraded to a 2 bedroom, which didn't necessarily, it increased my rent. Obviously, I didn't have to like buy out my lease. My apartment at the time had like you can transfer apartments within the complex for only a $500 fee. So it wasn't like moving the apartments wasn't a lot from a lease perspective, but I bought a lot of furniture for my new 2 bedroom apartment. And then I literally moved to Nashville like 8 months later or something. So I just moved around a lot and spent a lot of money each time that I did. And I definitely don't consider moving to Nashville a financial mistake because that was an amazing experience. I would have paid double what I did to move there to have that experience for a year in my 20s. But just being cautious of how often you're moving in your 20s, you can definitely spend a lot of money there. Okay, let's get into the last one. This one, there's actually two questions here, but we kind of grouped them together. And I'll answer this one first because I feel like it's a little bit more prominent for like things that are going on in my life right now. This person asked both how should couples split finances and then how do you protect yourself financially in a marriage. So this is super prevalent to me right now because I don't know if anybody saw this, but I got like totally roasted on TikTok about a month ago at this point because I made a video saying that Alex is moving in with me and I don't want to be his landlord. He's not paying my mortgage until we're legally married, basically. And I got like super roasted because everybody was like, he's taking advantage of you. And like, what do you mean you're letting this man like live rent free and blah, blah, blah. I think the context there is, and I think everyone, I'll preface this by saying, I think everyone has different opinions on this, and that's totally fine. I personally have always been in the boat of like more of an equitable financial split with a partner. And this is also assuming that you and your partner are on the same page about like marriage and timelines and things like that. Like, this is not a man that like, we don't know if we're going to get married. That's in like the distant future. That's in the very, very near future for us. So I think that makes a big difference as well. But I definitely believe in more of like an equitable financial split. And we're in a situation where I'm the higher earner by like kind of a long shot, if I'm being honest. So I did let him move into my house. It was actually my decision. He was never at his apartment. He was spending like thousands of dollars a month on rent for an apartment that he was never at. And I was like, just move in here. Yes, splitting it would be like $1,300 a person, but he contributes elsewhere, like from a financial standpoint, and marriage is in the very, very near term for us. So I also think that like kind of shifts things once you become legally married. And obviously we're not at that point yet, so I can't really speak on it, but I can speak on the how do you protect yourself financially in marriage. I am totally team prenup. I think if you don't sign a prenup, the government signs one for you. And I think the purpose of a prenup is to protect both of you when things are going well. Like, you should walk into the prenup conversation from a place of we both love each other, and if something were to happen, we both want the best for each other, and that's how a prenup should be kind of approached. But again, more on that when the time actually comes, because obviously this is coming from someone that has never been married before.
Yeah, I am also team prenup. I want to say too, with this question in particular, I mean, I feel like money becomes a very divisive topic for people, as we saw, as we have both seen on our content on social media. It's just you can share how you spent $5 and someone will say you should have spent it a different way. It's like, okay, it is a very personal thing to people. And I think that when you start to involve the conversation of money and relationships, it adds a whole nother level to it, because everyone has a different idea about how finances should be managed in dating relationships, in, when you're engaged to someone, when you're married to someone, when you have kids. Like, people just have different perspectives. And I think it's become such a like you and I have different perspectives on it. And it doesn't mean that I think you're doing something wrong, or you're wrong, I'm right, or, you know, anything like that. It doesn't have to mean anything. And it's so baffling to me that people get so extremely heated. Like, the hate that you got online, I just have to say, was insane, because it's like,
Insane.
again, and transparently, like, I I don't want to live with a partner before marriage. That is something that I don't feel aligned to, and I just don't. And so the idea of splitting rent with a partner before marriage is not something that I even would have to consider, because it's not something I want to do. That doesn't mean that Erin is wrong for living with a partner and splitting rent. That, no, but people in the comment section of that video, I was shook to my core, because I'm like, guys, you can have a different perspective from somebody else and just leave it there. Like, it can just be that.
Yeah.
I Go ahead.
I will say, I think it got very taken out of context because I said that video was responding to a comment from a prior video. And in the prior video, not the one that went viral, in the prior video, I said, one, that I earn significantly more than him, but then also two, that marriage is like literally within the year for us. But I didn't repeat those things in the viral video. So those two pieces of context were not were not articulated. That viral video was literally just me saying, like, yeah, I don't want to be his landlord until we're legally married. Like, I don't need him Venmoing me $1,300 a month. So it did get taken out of context. And I think that that's why, like, the hateful comments came
Yeah.
in. But yeah, we're all allowed differing opinions.
Yes. And I think also, like, for example, the context that you gave in that first video, that context, to some people, that context is really, really, like, meaningful context. And to other people, that context doesn't change how they feel about it. And, like, so it's just, I don't know, it's one of those things that I was I was shook by the comments on those videos and the things people were. First of all, because I'm like, Erin is my girl, so I'm like, you're not going to play about my girl on this on the same internet that I go on to. On my internet, you're not going to talk about my girl that way. I was blocking people left and right. But I just, like, I don't know, it's kind of crazy. But anyways, to answer the question of how, like, I feel like couples should split finances, there's a difference between what I think people should do and what I think, like, what I personally want. I think people should do what makes sense for them and what both parties in the relationship agree to. I think that when it comes to marriage, I am team prenup. I think that I would personally not get married without a prenup, and that's something that when when that conversation comes up in dating, I do bring that up. I personally would not do it. I view a prenup as insurance. When I have children, I will purchase term life insurance that makes it so that if something happens to me, my children will have money there up until whatever age I decide to choose in that term life insurance. Because I don't go into purchasing life insurance being like, well, probably going to die before my kids turn 18. No, that's not what I'm doing when I purchase that. I don't buy health insurance being like, oh my gosh, there's a really high likelihood I'm going to have some catastrophic incident this year. No, I'm not going into it wishing for those things, but I have it in place so that, God forbid, something does happen, there's a plan in place, and I've decided what that plan is. Another great example, I have a will right now. I created my will when I was 24 because I knew that if something happened to me, I want there to be a plan in place for where my business goes, the money that I have in my own accounts, where all of that goes. And I wanted to make sure that there was no ifs, ands, or buts about what happens with that. So when I think about a prenup, I 100% will have a prenup so that if anything ever does happen, again, God forbid, it's not the government getting to decide what happens to my assets. I also personally, assets that I own prior to marriage, I want to always remain my own, and assets that if we are creating them, like if we buy a house together, that becomes a shared asset. That is something that is then split if a divorce were to happen. But I want it to be abundantly clear, because one thing, and I think this is, if you're an entrepreneur, I think you need to think about this too, is I have heard stories of women who own businesses going into marriage without a prenup. And then when they got a divorce, again, very unfortunate. In some cases, I think it was actually great that these people got divorces because they were in unhealthy marriages. But in those situations, the male partner has tried to claim that the woman's business was a shared asset because she built part of it during marriage. And that is what I will not play about, because that's my business. Like, and I own that. And if I'm the one working on it, just because I worked on that marriage and grew it during marriage, like I wouldn't want anyone to be able to take that. So I am team prenup. When it comes to how couples should split finances like before marriage, again, because I don't want to live with a partner before marriage, I'm not like, oh, I don't need to split utilities with you. I don't need to split rent. I don't need to split bills, da da da. I like a more traditional, like, what's the word? I'm going to use the word format. That's not like, it sounds so corporate. A more traditional kind of vibe where I would like to be with someone that is paying for all of the dates. That's my expectation and my desire. I, of course, will contribute in other ways. And when that is taken care of, like I've been in relationships like that and I still plan dates and pay for them and whatever. But the primary, like that is falling on him. And that's what I would like. I also would like someone that when it comes to splitting, like when we are married, my hope would be that they are able to cover everything, and that my income, obviously our income would go together, we would split different things, but that if during pregnancy and postpartum and everything, if I chose to step back from work at that time, because your body's going to go through a lot, that they would be in a position where they're able to cover things if I decide to make that decision. Again, not to say that I wouldn't be contributing, because I would. I want to be a working mom. That's something I desire for myself. And I would go into it with the assumption that we are splitting in marriage. We are splitting however the heck we want to split. I don't care, but we're splitting mortgage and all of those things. But that person could step up and take care of it if I chose to take a step back. Because I've talked to about on the podcast about having health issues and endometriosis and all of that. And I have no idea what that's going to look like when, I'm pregnant and postpartum. It could be an absolute disaster on my body. I don't know. And so those are where like finances come up for me in that.
Yeah, I think overall I take the approach with relationships, especially again, the closer that I get to marriage, children, family, like you're doing what's best for the partnership. And I do think that this is, again, a completely different conversation between whether you're married with someone that you see marriage with in the very near term versus like a college boyfriend that you guys just started dating. Like I don't think that anyone should put themselves out financially for a relationship, but
No.
I do think that when you become serious about someone and you do see a life with this person, like you start to do what's best for the partnership. So yes, I could say, Alex, you're moving in and I need you to Venmo me $1,300 a month for your rent this month. This is also such a convoluted conversation because he had to pay literally so much money to break his lease. He had to pay like $10,000 to get out of his lease at his apartment. It was actually crazy. He had to pay 2 months rent plus a $3,000 concession because they gave him a $3,000 concession when he re-signed his lease. But then his lease said that if you break it, you have to pay back any concessions. So he literally had to spend $10,000 just to break his lease. And I was the one that said, like, you should break your lease because you're never there. And if you don't spend $10,000, then you're going to spend $36,000 at an apartment that you're never at this year. So like, but that's besides the point. So I wasn't going to make him spend $10K and then come and move in and say, yeah, Venmo me $1,300. But just approaching it from the what is best for the partnership. I'm a lot further along in my career than he is right now, but there's going to be many years where he's going to be the breadwinner. His career is way more stable than mine. And I also really want to be a working mom. I don't think that I would enjoy being a stay-at-home mom and not doing anything else. I just, with my personality, I know I wouldn't enjoy that. But I'm the same way. I don't know what my career looks like. I will probably want to take time off with kids. If there is a phase of my life where I want to be more present of a mom and I want to take a step back from work, that's going to take a dip in my income. So he has many years to be the breadwinner. And at that point, he will take on a bigger share of all of the expenses, but you do what's best for the partnership in that season of life. So that's the approach that I've taken. And the whole prenup thing is an entire separate conversation because, as you said, getting a prenup is one thing, but what goes into the prenup is the other thing. And obviously neither of us have gone through that situation before. When I do, I will definitely share all the details on how it goes, because I feel like that's a whole other thing. But yeah, it's a very convoluted conversation. And feel free, leave your opinions in the comments, but maybe make them nice because I'm a little scarred from the whole TikTok situation.
I just think, like, with this conversation, people get really upset. And I don't quite understand why, because it's one of those things where I just feel like, yes, you need to be smart about the decisions that you make, and you need to think about the ramifications of those decisions, right? Like, yeah, if you do, for example, co-sign your boyfriend's loan and then you break up and he stops paying the loan, you were on that loan, you're now responsible. So, like, yeah, maybe don't do that just because, like, he needs a car to get to a job and you feel like that's the right thing for the partnership.
We're buying a house with a boyfriend. Right. Like, there's so many things.
Yes. It's like, we need to think through what the potential ramifications could be. And again, you don't go into making those decisions thinking, oh, we're like, we're going to break up. Like, you're not wishing for those things. But I think there needs to be a level of wisdom and thought that goes into financial decisions that you make with people, whether they are your boyfriend, your fiance, their, husband, wife, whatever they are to you. But I also think it's one of those things where it's just like, you like what you like and you don't what you don't like, and that's okay. Like, there are people who are like, no, it makes me feel better to split every single thing 50-50, and that's that, period. And we keep separate finances 100%, and we Venmo each other back and forth for everything. If that scratches the itch in your brain and that makes you feel like the most secure, do it. That is no skin off my back. It does not matter. If you are someone who you want your partner to pay for 100% of things, and your money is your money, and you say his money is both of y'all's money, fine. What does that have to do with me? That has nothing to do with me. If that was what works for you and you both enjoy that, that's really lovely. If you are an equitable person where you're like, you know what, I make 40% more than him, so I'm going to pay 40% more of all the bills and, things we do, that is fine too. It literally does not matter to me whatsoever. And I don't know why people get so upset. If there are two consenting adults that are both agreeing to the financial situation, yes, I think, again, and the caveat there is that, no, I'm not saying that applies in situations where someone has been coerced into some sort of financial situation, because there definitely are scenarios where that happens, and then one person is basically suffering more than they should be in that situation. Like, if someone makes 5 times more than the other person, okay, splitting rent 50-50, let's think about that. Does that make sense for someone who's making 30,000 and the other person's making 300,000? No, you're not going to split. Let's, you know what I mean? Unless the rent is really, really low. Yes, you have to think about those things, but it literally just does not matter to me. I'm like, I can want what I want, and I'll find someone who wants the same thing, and y'all can want what you want. We don't have to be mean to each other about it.
The last thing I'll say about this little TikTok drama, because I feel like this is a safe space, and I haven't really we haven't talked about it on the podcast yet, and it happened like a month ago. The amount of hate that Alex was getting was actually crazy to me, specifically because I said that he was in the military, and I don't know where this kind of like it was negative comments about the military as in regard to alluding that he would cheat on me. Okay. First of all, I don't know where this hate to veterans came from, but I am so not here for it. I was like so taken aback by all of those comments specifically, because I'm like, first of all, Alex is amazing. Love him to death. He's literally the best man I've ever come across, literally ever. I have nothing but amazing things to say about him. But second of all, literally last year, he was deployed. literally deployed in combat zones, okay? Not just sitting at a desk overseas, in combat zones, okay? Literally fighting for our country. And there's people in the comments literally crapping on him for being in the military. Like, so many rude comments. I was very, very taken aback by that. I thought that that was like actually like, yeah, very crazy. And then the other thing was just that, like, alluding to with the whole like income discrepancy thing, because he's older than me, but he's a pilot. He literally just became a pilot. This is his first year at his major airline job. Before that, and he's like said this before, he has made very, very minimal money while he was getting all of his licenses and getting all of his flight hours. Before you become a pilot, you have to hit a certain number of flight hours, and you have to be a flight instructor in order to do that. So for years he was working as a flight instructor, literally making minimum wage. Minimum wage, okay? So like people just like completely attacking me for being younger than him, but being better off financially. Like, he's in a career where now it's great and it's going to be cushy, and he has a great job that can make a good amount of money, but it took him a really long time in order to get here. And I am so proud to be able to let him move in and go build up your savings. Like, who cares? Because I bought this house on my own. I can afford my mortgage, and I don't need his $1,300 a month.
Yeah, it all just goes back to this idea, which I just don't understand. Never in my life have I seen a video online and then left like a nasty comment on it. Never in my life. If I see videos I just don't agree with, I just scroll. Like, that's all. I just scroll and I just leave it alone. Like, and are there times where I see things and I think to myself, oh goodness gracious, like, yeah, absolutely, there are times that I'm like, whoa, I don't agree with this person's decision or that person's decision or whatever, but never in my life have I sat there and typed out a nasty comment. So it's like, because people were coming at the whole situation from every single angle,
Yes,
and
every
nitpicking every
angle.
single thing, whether it is his military service, which, like, thank you to everyone who serves, whether you are in the combat zone or, you're the person, managing things in the office to ensure things go smoothly, whatever it may be. It's like, but I know people have opinions about the military as a whole, and that's not something we're discussing on the podcast, but it's like, again, if you don't like that, just leave it alone. I don't know, like, leave it alone. Just like, don't say anything at all. Or if you think it is crazy that Erin doesn't charge her boyfriend like rent to live there, okay, then just scroll, leave it alone. If you personally wouldn't date someone that doesn't make as much as you or doesn't make more than you, okay, then just say, I would only date someone that makes more than me, and then leave it alone. What is what Erin and her boyfriend do? What does that have to do with you? I just don't understand. It really doesn't make any sense to me, because I'm like, what within you was triggered so much by Erin's video? That's what I don't understand. And I think that and we talked about this behind closed doors, I think there's thoughtful commentary of like, hey, I'm a divorce attorney, and here, like, if you're thinking about, this thing, here's what some legal ramifications of this decision versus this decision could be. Or, oh, I am a couples therapist, and I talk with people about how they split money all the time because money is the number one factor in why marriages dissolve. So here are some perspectives on, sure, absolutely, add your expert opinion to it, like, in a very tasteful and thoughtful way. But to be so triggered by somebody else's decision that it makes you leave nasty, nasty comments, picking apart people and their life, it just doesn't, because again, we don't even have the same opinion on the situation. We have different perspectives on how we would handle finances in relationships. Never would that. I just am like, okay, she does what she does and I do what I do. Like, I don't know, guys. I'm like, what is wrong with people?
It was actually
wild.
crazy. It was in my 3 years of TikTok, I can honestly say, actually 4 years of posting on TikTok, I can honestly say that is the worst that it has ever been. It reached such an interesting, like, everybody was just really, really angry about it. Like, I've obviously gotten backlash in my comment section before, but never just pure hatred and like, yeah, a million people leaving clown emojis.
The think pieces. That was what got me.
The think pieces.
I'm sorry. No, I just have to say this. People were creating, because this was really like irritating me. Because again, I'm like, Erin is my girl. I stand beside her. So you know what I mean? So I'm like, let's not play. I'm scrolling on my own For You page, again, on my nice internet, and I'm getting videos of people making think pieces on Erin, basically dissecting the video and just being so hateful. Again, here's the thing. I don't care whether you agree with the decision or not. That doesn't matter. But if you see a girl getting hated on insanely online, and then you think, you know what? I'm going to add my opinion to that, knowing dang well that when you make that video, that other people, that your video is going to get views because people are talking about her poorly. Again, this is not a positive situation where people are talking about her positively. You make a video knowing people are going to watch it and you're going to get a lot of views, and that your comment section is going to be full of people adding more fuel to the fire. I need you to just like get right with yourself and like really dig deep and look inside, because again, there's a time to add a thoughtful like expert commentary or something like that to the conversation, but it's a whole nother thing to look at someone getting an extreme amount of hate and to want to capitalize on that and add your opinion in with no thought about how that is impacting a literal human being who is being torn apart on the internet because they have an opinion that is different than yours. That is so diabolical to me.
Yeah.
Diabolical.
And if you want to see what we're talking about, first of all, I deleted the
gosh.
videos because the comment section was just, it was getting out of hand. Like my mental health was just really taking a toll that week. I deleted the videos because it was like, I can't. Every time I open TikTok, I don't want this showing up in my notification center. But if you search Erin Confortini mortgage on TikTok, I'm sure you will find all of these think pieces. But to sum up the conversation of what all of these think pieces say, it was basically just he's saving for his dream girl. Like, first of all, I got thousands of comments saying that exact thing. Like, you clown, he's saving for his dream girl, basically insinuating that Alex just spent $10,000 to break his lease to move in with me to live here for free and then is going to dump me in a year to have money for his dream girl. Okay. Like, okay, that's your argument, that he's going to live with me for a year and save $1,300 a month after he literally sold all of his belongings at his apartment, spent $10,000 to break his lease, and then first of all, he went to Macy's when he moved into this apartment. This is such a boy thing. He went to Macy's when he moved into his apartment and literally just went up to the Macy's rep and had them like pick out a whole apartment worth of furniture.
Very
it was
efficient.
Like $15,000. Yeah, it was like $15,000. And like looking back,
Okay.
he was like, I spent way too much money on this furniture for this apartment. Obviously, when you sell furniture, you make like none of it back. I think he maybe made $2,000 back on all of his furniture. So he took such a loss. He sold all of his things. He spent $10,000 to break his lease to move in with me. And people are like, he's just going to use you for a year and then take that money for his dream girl. Like, I can't with that. I really can't with that.
And again, it just, I've like, and what's it to ya? What's it to ya?
Okay.
Like, obviously, I hope that does not happen. Like, I obviously want you guys to get married. You guys are adorable. You seem very happy, whatever. Like, but I'm like, if I was a stranger that does not know you and I see this and that's my thought of, oh, he's going to date her for a year and then dump her. What's it to me? What is it to me if that happens to this random girl that I don't know on the internet? Why would I feel the need to, again, leave a rude comment to her? I just don't even understand. It just, and then to see like tens of thousands of people, like, I'm like, y'all are all sick, every single one of you, because what are you, again, go
crazy.
Get right with yourself, because what is wrong with you to leave? Oh my gosh, I was so like, I was fired up on your behalf that week. I really was. I was like really fired up on your behalf because I'm just like,
it was wild.
I had to control myself. I was like, I wanted to clap back at people so hard. And then I was like, no, Grace. I'm like, because then you'd be doing exactly what you're telling people not to do and adding fuel to the fire. So I was just blocking people like left and right. I was like, this is just sickening. Like, oh my gosh.
But anyway, okay. Well, I think that brings us to the end of this Q&A. We went on a little bit of a tangent. That became less of a Q&A, but we haven't talked about it. And this literally happened a month ago. And I'm finally over it. I was kind of boycotting TikTok for like 2 weeks, but now I'm back and we'll probably post something else that'll get people mad. But with that, if you have any questions that you want us to cover in next month's Q&A, feel free to leave them on this episode, or you can leave them on any of our longer form episodes. Like we said at the beginning of this episode, we kind of just look through Spotify and pull all of the relevant questions into these monthly Q&As. So definitely leave them all on Spotify. But with that, thanks for tuning into the podcast, and until next week.